told you that this in this there is an external name and there is an internal name. Never change the internal name. This thing it's just a rough thing which I'm telling you. This thing external name always you can change that. Fine. And about the size of the repository and all I told you. Now in the object repository there are other features as well. If you move your mouse over the top out here, you will see the other features. Okay. Now let me make a new test. When I make a new test, what will happen? The object repository refreshes. The old objects in the old object repositories are gone and it becomes blank. Fine. Now, how do you add objects in the object repository? We have seen that you have to run the script. Okay, you have to click on the run button. Sorry, you have to record the script. You click on the record button. The script will go in the recording mode, and whatever you do, objects and all you interact with, all of them, they'll come inside the object repository. Okay. Now, if you open up the browser and say I'm on the page gmail.com, right? 1 minute. Right, I'm on this page. Hold on. No. Yeah. I'm on this page gmail.com, the home page. Alright, suppose I have to add this sign in button inside the object repository. So what is the normal process? You start recording and you click on that button. But you can also do it without recording. There's an icon over here, add objects to local. With this icon you can add the object, that is you can add the sign in button inside the object repository. You can click on this, you can click on the button after this. What happens when you click on this? QTP it vanishes and the window behind QTP it comes up. It's similar to object spy. The only thing is you let a hand like this and wherever you click, as soon as you click on this sign in button, QTP will come up and it will tell you the hierarchy of this button. That is, there's a browser, then page, and then the web button. Fine. You can click on OK, and this web button will be added in the repository. You can then drag this web button in your script, and the code will also get generated. Okay. I'll again repeat. You click on the add button. This one, add objects to local. This icon. You select an object, for example, the username field, get the hierarchy, click on OK, and it will be added, and you can drag it. Okay. Similarly, with the calculator as well. That is, if I have this calculator, if I click on this add, and suppose I click on 9 after that, and I click on OK, so calculator will be added in the repository. Right. Now in the object spy as well you have this option. For example, when you are spying, okay, if I click on this hand out here while spying, and if I move my, suppose if I move on this window somewhere, suppose I move my spy on this button on the top, create an account, you'll get the properties of this button in the spy. When you click on it, QTP will come up and you'll see that that's not a button, actually that's a link. Okay, and in spy as well you have that icon, add objects to repository. So when you click on this, the object will get added to the repository. Fine, this is the one. So while spying as well, you can add the object. You can go spy, move your mouse over the object which you need to add. For example, this is a web checkbox. A checkbox is known as a web checkbox. Right? And you click on this add icon. Right? So this will get added in the repository, and that's how you do it. Fine, and you can drag drop the objects. So you can add in two ways, either through object spine, or you can add directly the objects to the object repository through the object repository window. Fine. Now, suppose if I click on this add objects icon and I click anywhere on the page. What I'm trying to do is, now I will add all the objects on this page in the repository, all the buttons, links, web elements, whatever is there on this page, all the objects I'm going to add in the repository. So you click anywhere on the page. Fine. After clicking anywhere on the page, instead of selecting the web element in the lowermost element in the hierarchy, I'll select the browser. Okay, I'll select the browser and I'll click on OK and select all object types from the filter over here and click on OK. So what will happen is all the objects of this page will come in the repository. See, there are links, there are images, links, web button, web checkbox, web edits, and a lot of objects are there. Okay. Generally, this kind of thing you never do, but I just told you that it's possible. Because what will you do by adding all the objects of a page? You don't test everything with automation tools. It's just basically use it to test the functionality, right? Similarly with the calculator as well. Okay. For example, I take the calculator. I click on the add icon. I click anywhere on the calculator, and from the hierarchy, I click on the first icon over there, the first element window calculator, and select all object types. So all the buttons of the calculator, you see that? All the edit boxes, buttons, everything will come over in the repository. Okay, so basically object repository is like the brain of QTP, and there are various features which are associated with object repository. That's what I am going to teach you one by one. And after adding the objects manually in the object repository, you can simply drag drop the objects and make the code. Fine. Now this is the icon to add the object. Okay. If you look at the left side to it, there's a button called update from application. Okay. Now I cannot tell you the practical utility. I cannot show it to you. But the thing is, suppose for example, just a minute. In gmail.com, or suppose I go to the site timesofIndia.com. Okay, let me show it to you like this. Everybody knows it's a website which is catering to the news, right? It's a website which caters to the news and live updates. Hold on, my net is slow. Timesofindia.com. Fine. Now, if you actually look at this headlines, right? For example, I go to QTP and I add the headlines in the repository. Okay, this is the headlines. Fine. Now this headlines is recognized with the text of the headlines. Fine. Now we know that tomorrow the headline will change for sure. So you need to update the application, update the repository, right, with the new headlines. Alright. So in that case, basically what I need to tell you, the object has changed. Okay, in the next build, the object has changed, and you need to update the repository. For that, you have this icon, update from application. You select the object from here, so make sure that the object is highlighted. Click on the icon update from application. Then click on the updated link. For example, I click on this link, Exodus of Northeast People. So when I click on this and I click on OK, so the external name it remains the same, but the internal name on which actually the object is recognized is changed. Got my point? This name I can give it anything. I can rename it myself as well. That's not a problem. This is just an external name, but the internal name will change. For example, in case of let me make a new test. Suppose I go to the calculator, right? I open up calculator and I add the button 7 in the calculator, right? And I drag this 7 out here. Okay. When you run the script, what will happen? Calculator will be, the 7 button will be clicked on the calculator. Okay, hold on. Already some numbers were clicked. Okay, let me run this now. You see that in calculator the 7 button is clicked on. Fine. You also get the results window up when you run the script. You can disable this window from coming again and again because this window travels a lot. Fine. You can go to tools, options and run. I'll again repeat, you can go to tools, options and run settings, and you can disable this checkbox. By default, when you install QTP, this checkbox is enabled, view results when run session ends. Click on OK and the run sessions will never be displayed to you, your run results. Right? But the truth, the point is that number 7 is written inside this text field. Okay. Now suppose I click on update from application button and I select 5 here. So what will happen is the internal name of this button changes to 5. Now when I run the script, you see, if you look at the calculator, the button 5 is clicked, 75 is written there. But the external name remains same. So external name is just a temporary name. I can just write it as button. Right? Even if I manually change this out here to 9, then also it will click on 9 now. If you run this, see it clicked on the 9 button. Right? So that's quite easy. Right? So the update from application updates the object, but make sure you update a button with a button, or win button with a win button, or win edit with the edit box. Okay, I cannot replace a button with an edit box. Suppose if I try to do that, I try to replace this button with this edit box. If I click on this and click on OK, you will get this window. You get the error message. Fine. You can only exchange a button with a button, a link with a link, objects of the same category. Alright. Now the next icon, define new. I'll talk about this one later on. Okay, define new test object. If you look at the next one, highlight in application. Now if suppose in your repository I go and add from Times of India, I add all the objects from Times of India, browser, okay, all object types. I add all the objects from this page in my repository. Hold on, let it get added. Fine. All the objects from Times of India have been added into the repository. So I'm not sure where is which object. Right? There are so many objects, right? So I'm a little bit confused here that where is which object and I don't know where is everything lying. For example, uh, this link. I want to find out where is it on the page. So you select the link and you click on this small cube, highlight in application. Okay. When you click on it, that particular, see that the object is highlighted. I'll again show it to you. Click on this and that object, you see that? Fine. Now the opposite of that thing. That is, I want to know where the object in my web application is there in the repository. That is, from the web application, I need to map the object back to the web application. Fine. For that, you can use the next icon, locate in repository. So you click on this and click anywhere on the page. For example, I need to find out where is this text field, the one in which 100 is written, where is this inside the object repository. I click on this and I click on OK. So that particular text field is highlighted over here. Okay. These are small operations, but they are very useful when you are working with repository in your project. Okay, you actually, they solve a lot of your issues. Fine. So the first one was add the object, second one was update from application, this one was highlight, this one was locate in repository, both are opposite of each other. Then object spy. Okay. Object spy is also the part of the repository. You will get the object spy window on the main window as well as the repository. And the next one is associate repository. So let us see what is this. Few minutes back I had explained you how can I store this repository on my hard disk. I can go to file, export local objects, and for example I made this file temp.tsr. I'll overwrite it and I'll save this repository on the hard disk. Fine. Now suppose I make a new test. The repository goes blank. And if you go to your hard disk, then you have the temp.tsr file here. Inside this file, you know all the objects are present. Right? So if you want to associate this repository, you want to import the contents of this repository into your test, then there is the icon called out here associate repositories. Okay. When you click on this associate repositories icon, you get a window like this, right? And you click on the plus sign, add repository. So when you click on this, select the repository, select action 1 from here. I'll tell you what action 1 is. There can be multiple actions in a test. For time being, just accept it. Fine, and drag it onto the right side, click on OK. So this repository, complete repository from the hard disk, will be imported into your current test and you can drag drop them. Right, drag drop the objects from them. But the problem is that this imported repository will be, you see that it's a little bit shaded, right? It's not something which was like in the previous one. You cannot edit this repository. It is read only. Okay, such kind of repository is known as a shared repository. Why shared repository? Because practically what we do is that when we are working, if we are working with object repository, we keep the object repository at one location, the TSR file, like I have it on my desktop, and there will be multiple test cases, and you share this file with all the test cases. so that tomorrow if some object changes, you just need to change it in this particular repository. The change gets reflected in all the tests. Fine. So this kind of repository is known as shared repository, and it's not actually enabled. Everything inside the shared repository is disabled. You can actually edit this repository. Right here you cannot edit it, but you can edit it by actually going to something known as Object Repository Manager. Fine. If you this is Object Repository, the one which I have opened, and there is something known as Object Repository Manager. If you open up this thing, Object Repository Manager is a separate window. Okay, you see, if I maximize QTP, then there are two windows opening. One is Object Repository, and the other one is Object Repository Manager. Fine. If I open up Object Repository Manager, then I'll see a window like this coming up. Fine. And you can, in this window, you can go to the option open up temp.tsr. So this will be my object repository, okay, which is just got opened in Object Repository Manager. But I can edit this object repository out here. You can click on this icon over here, enable editing. Okay, you can click on this, the repository will get enabled, and maybe you can change the browser name if you want. For example, the browser out here is Times of India Latest. So I'll call my browser, say, News. Okay, hit enter, news will be changed. Save the repository, and when you go back to QTP, okay, the news, it gets changed in the object repository out here as well, inside the test as well. So basically what I did was, diagrammatically, I changed some object in this particular original TSR file. The change automatically got reflected in the test file, because in the test file as well, the repository is coming, sorry, in not the test file, but in the test as well, the repository is actually coming from that single TSR file. That TSR file can be edited from the Object Repository Manager, right? And that's what I did right now. So the manager, we'll study about the manager as well. We'll study it in depth. Okay. But basically, the Object Repository Manager is a file which is something which helps you to make and edit TSR files. For example, I'll go here and I'll say file new. So a fresh window will come up. Okay. Now in this Object Repository Manager out here, you have the same features which you have in the normal object repository in your QTP. Okay. Now suppose if I click on the add icon over here, if I click on add icon and I add all the objects of a calculator in this repository, okay, save this repository on my hard disk as CALC. Earlier we used to save the repository on the hard disk from the repository itself by going to file export objects. Now what I did was, I opened up my object repository manager, included all the objects of calculator inside it, and saved this file as a TSR file on the hard disk. Now you can make a test and suppose you need to include the objects of calculator. You can click on the add icon, you can click on this pink icon over here, associate repositories, and select your calculator.tsr send it to rent, left, sorry, send it to right, and click on OK. So the calculator objects will come up over here. Now you can simply write 4 plus 4 equals to, right? You can drag drop the object, and when you run this, it will calculate 4 plus 4 equals to inside the calculator. See that the result is 8. Fine, right? And if I go to my object repository manager and suppose I change the 4 name to the English letters for FOUR and save this. So this is renamed to 4. What will happen is that if you go back to your test, then the 4 out here will also be renamed automatically, and out here in the object repository, the shared repository as well, you will see that 4 has been renamed. Okay, fine. Now this is like this is quite complicated, I know that. Fine, you might be finding it a little bit tough, but if you do it with your own hands, if you do it yourself, okay, it will help you a lot. So I would recommend that whatever I'm teaching in this course, it's better that you go every day, you go back and try it out yourself. Okay, I did not teach you how to implement a test case, how to write your test cases and all, but what I'm teaching you right now is the features of QTP first. Okay, what QTP is, what is it made up of, and how stuff and how things they work in QTP. Okay. Now, do you have a specific application which you want me to show on, or can I take my own custom examples and all? Okay, I'll take my own custom examples right now. Okay. Now, this is about object repository. Okay. It is so basically object repository is something wherein you can store all the objects. It's like your warehouse, just like your database, and you can pick out the objects from the object repository when you're running the script, and you can bring that into your application. Fine. One thing which I guess I missed out with you guys is that this is calculator. Fine. Now if I open one more calculator, I'll have two calculators on my desktop. Okay. If you run the script, this script will not execute. In case of Windows-based applications, make sure only one instance of the Windows-based application is opened. Okay. If I close, as soon as I close one of the calculators, script executes and adds 4 plus 4. Okay. Fine. If you want to see the results, then you can click on this results icon over here, and the result window will come up. It is quite heavy. SP run results. Okay. And in this, if you expand this over here, you'll see that on the calculator these 4 commands are fired. Okay, there are other things in this result like data table, log tracking, system monitor, screen recorder and all. So we'll look at them gradually as we proceed. Fine. And right. Fine. Now sometimes what people do is they actually, this is not related to anything, but just some knowledgeable info. For example, this is the test flow panel. They close the test flow panel, okay, and they don't know how to bring it back. Fine. So what they do is you can go to the view menu, and in the view menu of QTP you will see all the panels. For example, if I want to bring back the text flow panel, you can click on this and text flow panel will come up. So if you have actually disabled a panel, you can enable it from here. These are all the panels. We will be looking at every panel later on, right? In case of Windows based application, only one instance. In case of web based applications, you can open multiple browsers. For example, I record and I open, this is my regular Mozilla browser, and I click on any link over here, say scope to cut rates further, SBI chief. Right? So when you click on this, this gets recorded. Now suppose if I open one more browser, right? So I opened one more browser, and on that particular browser, hold on, I click on this link about Mozilla. So you can work with multiple browsers. When you run the script, both will execute. Okay, it did not record clicking on that. Hold on. Just a minute. Okay, I never let it sync. That's why. Yeah. So it actually clicked on the link about Mozilla. If you look at your repository, then in repository you will see that there are two browsers. You can have that. Every browser has a creation time. For example, the Times of India one, if you look at it, the creation time is 0. That means this was the first browser which was opened. Okay. If you look at the second browser, it has the creation time 1. Right? So both the browsers you can work with. Only thing is, if you have opened 10 different browsers, every browser will have a particular creation time. Okay, on the basis of which the objects on that browser and all are identified. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just end it up for today because